Wouldn't it be nice to store that energy of happiness inside our body, in the nervous system, and in our energy field? Our next tip is going to help us do just that. It is a very simple technique. We are going to tap in this area very gently. As we remember the happy moments or as we feel happy, we are going to tap in this area. Why this area? This is the area of the third eye chakra. So tapping it here as we remember our happiness is going to encode that happy energy in the third eye chakra and from there into the brain. The other reason is our bladder meridian goes from here through there all the way from the back to the feet. And our bladder meridian is responsible to support the entire nervous system. So by tapping here, we are encoding these energies of happiness into the third eye chakra and the bladder meridian, and through the bladder meridian into the nervous system. And when we intuitively feel that we have done it, we can just relax and take our energies and awareness of the energies to the heart. And with our hand now, we're going to set the intention of storing these energies of happiness into the field of the heart. The heart, as we know, is the biggest energy field in the body. And setting the intention to store the energy in the heart's field is enough to do that. Once we set that intention, we'll just hold attention there for a short while, and then we are done. What are the triggers that move us away from happiness? And I'm sure all of us have these triggers that pull us away from happiness, that make us unhappy, fear, anxiety, even a kind of irritation, anything that moves us away from our own happiness. So take a moment to reflect and maybe list what those triggers are for you. And I like to address this first because very often we are only looking at moving towards happiness. We are forgetting about moving away from the triggers that make us unhappy and not acknowledging that these are the things that are making me unhappy. When we don't acknowledge, what we are doing is we are burying our feelings and we are trying to impose happiness on top of these feelings. So this is a makeshift analogy. I hope you can see this. So assume that this is our inner self, our heart, our mind, whatever, our subconscious mind. And this is all the triggers that are making us unhappy. And most of us, we end up pushing these things inside. Let me see if I can do this. Really putting in effort to push it inside, bury it so that it is away out of sight. And then we are building the happiness on top of this. This may work the first time, the second time, the third time, but you can imagine if you were to start pushing a lot of things inside, eventually it's going to take more and more effort for us to suppress the feeling, the triggers that are moving us away from happiness. And eventually we will get tired out and we won't even be able to superimpose our happiness on top of this because these things are piling up and they are overwhelming whatever efforts we make towards happiness. So the first step is to start emptying this, releasing this, and using the tools that we have to release, or avoiding situations that are going to add on to this unhappiness. Once we are able to get a handle on this, then let's look at the triggers that move us towards happiness. And those triggers can be different for different people, definitely. But there are some triggers that are common for everybody. And those common triggers would be music and nature for most of us, friends, friends that we can laugh with, comedy shows, watching old movies that made us happy in the past, listening to music that made us happy in the past, because that brings up all the chemicals that are there within us, encoded and associated with that music, those movies, those comedy shows. Nature, definitely, because we have looked at various other videos. Anything that we do with nature, even if we are watching nature on video or on TV, it brings back those happy chemicals. Whatever we do to help others brings meaning to our lives and allows us to be happy. Smiling. Smiling, they say, is a curve that makes things straight. And smiling automatically, it actually takes, when we smile, it takes a lot of effort for the muscles. But then just that act of smile allows the body to say, okay, this person is trying to be happy. Let's start that process in the nervous system. So, smile, just an external smile. And when we are doing meditation, they talk of the inner smile as well. So, even if we are having a straight face, if we are thinking of an inner smile, visualizing ourselves smiling, that also triggers us and moves us towards happiness. And these are things that are common for most people. Doing something different, doing something creative, again moves us towards happiness. And when we are able to find these triggers, if we can lock that in place with the happiness tab, as I talked about in the video, then it is sort of encoding that happiness within us. Assuming that we have a lot of unhappiness within us, or memories, or past anxieties, past worries, if we were to make more efforts, one is to release, the other one is to keep exposing ourselves to situations and opportunities to be happy. The more we do that is like opening a tap and filling this. And eventually, the more effort we make towards happiness, some of the old unhappiness is going to go away, because we are activating the muscles of happiness. It's a muscle, and the more we keep building it, it'll become a habit. It'll become easier and easier to be happy. And when we look at it in this way, eventually our goal is to be happy with just a thought. And that thought is something that takes a lot of effort. So there are some ways in which we can program ourselves to associate certain triggers with happiness, so that just thinking of that trigger, just thinking of either that scene, that image, that word will bring about a whole burst of happiness. And I want to share one such trigger. For me, it is the infinity sign. And I think I may have shared this in one of the workshops earlier. It's the infinity sign. And I used to be fascinated with the infinity sign because it was a possibility, all possibilities open, infinite possibilities open. And somehow I got drawn to that infinity sign. And I was working with doing consulting for a company that had part of its logo as the infinity sign. So every time I used to go to the reception of that company, just looking at the logo would make me happy. And I think the company's logo, none of its regular employees, I don't think for any of them that logo meant as much as it did to me, because that symbol was something that was able to just shift me into happiness. No matter what was happening around me, just looking at that logo was good enough for me to feel happy. And that is something that each one of us can start looking at to say that, okay, what is that one trigger that I want to work on that would constantly allow me to shift into happiness automatically, regardless of the situation around me? It could be a loved one, it could be words or incidents that you had with a family member. And for me, for a long time, just talking to my father was would make me happy. And after he passed away, just thinking about him after my period of grieving for him, just thinking about him would allow me to be happy as well. So each one of us, if we can find a trigger that is so powerful and we keep using it, the more we keep using it, that trigger is going to become powerful. So find one trigger that allows us to shift into happiness and use all the tools that we talked about in the energy tools of happiness with this awareness that I'm contributing, first of all, to releasing whatever is taking me away from happiness. And I am moving towards those things that are going to make me happy. And eventually, as we move along this path, we will find that we can be happy for no reason, without triggers. And that is the ultimate aim. Thank you for joining me. Bye bye. Namaste.